Disclaimer: the following content is presented for educational and entertainment purposes. Viewer discretion advised. In a case already steeped in anticipation and controversy, Day 7 of the federal trial involving Sean Diddy Combs veered dramatically off course. The courtroom was bracing for a pivotal moment, Cass's testimony, expected to stir emotion and possibly sway the jury. But at exactly 10:46 a.m., something no one predicted occurred. Curtis Jackson, globally known as 50 Cent, entered the courtroom without warning, dressed in a grey suit and carrying a black folder. There was no media flurry, no entourage, just his presence, intense and focused. The gallery, momentarily confused, quickly fell silent as Jackson made his way to the bench and was sworn in as a witness. What unfolded next sent shockwaves through the room. Jackson's testimony didn't touch on personal feuds or music industry drama. It dove straight into serious allegations involving the late Kim Porter, Diddy's former partner. Jackson claimed Porter had lived in fear, had gathered damning evidence, and had confided in him about threats to her life. This wasn't just another celebrity headline, it was a potential turning point in the trial, shifting its focus from character disputes to matters of life, death, and justice. As Jackson's voice echoed through the courtroom, it became clear, this trial would never be the same again. Jackson entered the courtroom calmly, dressed in a sharp grey suit and carrying a simple black folder. Unlike the typical celebrity spectacle, he came alone, no entourage, no flashing cameras, no media frenzy. His presence was quiet but commanding. Without hesitation, he walked directly to the bench, speaking briefly with court officials. Moments later, he was sworn in as a witness, a formal step that sent an unexpected ripple through the courtroom. The reaction was immediate. The gallery gasped, not out of recognition for his fame, but because of the intensity and seriousness he brought with him. It was clear this wasn't just a routine appearance. Even Cassie, who had maintained her composure throughout the trial, looked shaken. The atmosphere shifted palpably. The courtroom, which had been tense but controlled, grew heavier with anticipation. Jackson's demeanor was a stark contrast to his public persona. Here was a man on a mission, resolute and focused. The weight of what he was about to reveal was felt by everyone present. This wasn't just testimony, it was a game changer. The moment marked a turning point in the trial, signaling that the day's proceedings would be unlike any before. The gallery watched in silence, bracing for what was next. Jackson's testimony didn't start with gossip or celebrity drama. Instead, he immediately brought the focus to Kim Porter, a model, devoted mother, and former partner of Sean Diddy Combs. Jackson painted a picture of a woman who lived in fear, someone deeply concerned for her safety. He revealed that Porter had confided in him as early as 2017, sharing secrets and fears that went far beyond typical personal troubles. According to Jackson, she had been quietly gathering evidence, documenting a story she knew could put her life at risk. Among the items she collected were screenshots of threatening messages that made clear the danger looming over her. She didn't stop there. Porter also stored encrypted videos, recordings hidden away to protect their sensitive content. Jackson said she held voice recordings as well, her own words captured in moments of vulnerability, describing the threats and pressure she faced. Perhaps most revealing was the manuscript Porter had been writing, a detailed account of her experiences, a memoir meant to tell the truth she feared would otherwise be silenced. Jackson testified that Porter's fears weren't unfounded. She didn't just worry about verbal threats, she believed her life was in genuine danger. And importantly, Jackson stressed that she had documented everything meticulously, hoping that someday, her story would see the light of day. This wasn't a tale of celebrity scandal, this was a grave warning, a cry for help concealed in evidence that painted a much darker picture of Porter's final years. According to Jackson, Kim Porter was not paranoid, she was painfully aware of the dangers surrounding her. She didn't simply imagine threats, she felt watched, followed by unseen eyes. She had received anonymous messages, threats so chilling that they left no doubt about the seriousness of her situation. More than just fearing for her safety, Porter was taking steps to protect her truth. Jackson testified that she was in the process of writing a memoir, one she feared could ultimately cost her life. This was no casual project. It was a painstaking effort to document her reality and expose secrets that many wanted buried. In court, Jackson recalled her words with haunting clarity: "If anything happens to me, it won't be an accident." Those words hung heavily in the air, filling the room with an almost tangible tension. The courtroom fell silent. Every person present felt the weight of that statement. Cassie, who had appeared composed throughout the proceedings, looked down, unable to meet the eyes of anyone. The jurors leaned forward, their attention razor-sharp. This was no longer a trial about celebrity disputes or business conflicts, it was a matter of survival. Jackson's testimony revealed a new layer to the case, one that transcended gossip and fame. It was about a woman trying to expose a truth so dangerous that it threatened her very existence. The stakes had risen dramatically, and everyone in the courtroom knew it. Then Jackson took the courtroom deeper into the shadows of hip-hop history. He revealed that Kim Porter's knowledge extended far beyond her personal struggles with Diddy. According to Jackson, Porter possessed critical information about two of the most notorious unsolved murders in the music world, the deaths of Tupac Shakur and Christopher Wallace, famously known as Biggie Smalls. Jackson testified that Porter did not believe these tragedies were simply the result of street violence or random acts of crime. Instead, she had uncovered evidence pointing to something far more sinister: calculated, orchestrated events involving powerful industry players. According to Porter's understanding, these deaths were part of a larger scheme, manipulation and cover-ups designed to protect interests within the music industry. Jackson described how Porter had begun piecing together the complex web of connections and motives behind these murders. She saw patterns emerging that suggested a deliberate attempt to silence voices and control the narrative of hip-hop's turbulent history. This revelation shocked everyone present. It was a heavy accusation, one that suggested a dark underbelly behind the glittering facade of fame and music success. Porter's insight, as Jackson relayed, was more than just speculation, it was based on information she had painstakingly gathered. By sharing this testimony, Jackson shifted the trial's scope, pulling back the curtain on decades-old mysteries and hinting at a conspiracy that reached far beyond the courtroom. The gravity of these claims cast a long shadow over the proceedings, leaving jurors and spectators alike grappling with the magnitude of what had just been revealed. Jackson's testimony then took a technological turn, delving into the digital trail left behind after Kim Porter's death. He revealed that crucial surveillance footage from Porter's home mysteriously disappeared in the days following her passing. This was no ordinary loss. According to Jackson, the home's security system had been remotely accessed and deliberately wiped clean. He presented technical logs and detailed access records to the court data that pointed to intentional tampering. The IP addresses used to hack into the system, Jackson claimed, were traced back to servers linked to Diddy's media enterprise. This connection, if true, suggested a troubling level of involvement far beyond mere coincidence. The implications of this digital sabotage were chilling. It wasn't just that Porter's life had ended under suspicious circumstances, her very presence, her proof, had been erased from the digital world. Her cameras, her recordings, her evidence all wiped away as if someone wanted to bury the truth permanently. Jackson's revelation turned the courtroom atmosphere icy. It painted a picture of a carefully orchestrated effort not only to silence Porter but to erase any trace of her last moments and the secrets she held. This wasn't just an attempt to control a narrative, it was a calculated move to destroy evidence, to obscure reality. For the jurors and everyone watching, this raised serious questions about who had the means, motive, and opportunity to manipulate technology to this extent. Jackson's testimony underscored the idea that the battle wasn't just happening in the courtroom, it was playing out in the invisible digital shadows as well. The threats didn't stop with Kim Porter's tragic death. Jackson revealed that shortly after her funeral, he himself became the target of a chilling warning. He received a phone call, a cold, menacing voice delivering a blunt message: "Back off or end up like her." The source of the call wasn't some random number. Investigations traced it back to a location near Bad Boy Records offices in New York, a connection that sent a clear and terrifying message. It wasn't just a threat, it was a warning tied directly to the heart of the ongoing case. Jackson testified solemnly about the impact of that call. Despite the clear danger, he took the responsible step and reported it to the authorities. "I did report it," he said in court, his voice steady but resolute. "And nothing happened." His words echoed through the courtroom, a stark reminder of the challenges faced when powerful forces are at play. But Jackson wasn't deterred. Instead, he declared his intention to break the silence, to bring the truth into the light in front of the jury and the nation. "Now I'm saying it in court before this jury," he declared, locking eyes with those present. "Let's see who tries to silence me now." This wasn't just a personal declaration. It was a defiant stand against intimidation, a refusal to be cowed by threats or fear. Jackson's testimony added yet another layer of tension to the trial, underscoring the risks involved in seeking justice. For the courtroom, the message was clear: the fight for truth was fraught with danger, but surrender was not an option. He paused, letting the weight of the moment settle over the courtroom. Then, with a tone stripped of showmanship, he addressed the court not as a performer, but as a man speaking from the heart. "I'm not here for publicity or recognition," he said firmly. "I'm here because I owe it to Kim." His words cut through the tension, revealing a deeper purpose behind his testimony. He painted a picture of Kim Porter not as a figure of scandal or recklessness, but as a devoted mother, a woman whose love for her children defined her. She wasn't reckless, nor was she vindictive. Instead, Jackson described her as fiercely protective, insightful, and profoundly aware of the dangers surrounding her. Yet, despite her strength, she was increasingly afraid. That fear wasn't born of paranoia but of reality, something darker closing in on her. Through Jackson's testimony, the courtroom saw Kim not just as a headline, but as a person vulnerable, courageous, and fighting to protect the truth. His heartfelt tribute added a poignant layer to the trial, reminding everyone that beyond the legal battle lay a human story of love, fear, and the quest for justice. Then came a pivotal moment in the courtroom. Jackson presented a memo, a document from a former assistant deep within the music industry. The memo outlined a chilling pattern, a systematic way of eliminating perceived threats. Among its darkest revelations was a quote attributed to Diddy himself: "Dead women don't talk." The room grew still as Jackson's gaze locked onto Diddy. With steady conviction, he declared, "I'm not a lawyer. But I recognize murder when it's disguised in expensive clothing. You now have the evidence, act on it." The weight of those words hung heavy in the air. Then, in a bold and deliberate move, Jackson walked across the courtroom toward Diddy's table. Looking him directly in the eye, he said, "You thought I was playing games. Turns out I held the winning move all along." Diddy remained completely motionless, his expression unreadable, neither anger nor defiance, just an eerie calm. The jury and everyone watching were struck by the tension in that silent exchange. This moment marked a dramatic turning point, one where accusations were no longer veiled, and the stakes had never been clearer. The courtroom held its breath, aware that the trial had reached a new, intense level. Then, the courtroom fell into an eerie silence as court officials played a haunting voicemail recording from Kim Porter, dated just 1 week before her death. The room leaned in closer as her voice, barely more than a whisper, filled the air. In that fragile, trembling message, Porter said, "If they claim I died of pneumonia, don't believe it. Check the cameras and servers. If you're hearing this," he succeeded. Every person in the courtroom froze at those words. The weight of the recording was undeniable. This was not just a message, it was a warning from beyond the grave. A final plea for truth, for justice, for someone to uncover what she feared would be covered up. What made this revelation even more startling was the fact that the voicemail had been stored on a secure server, one so tightly protected that even Porter's own family couldn't access it. Only Jackson had custody of this critical piece of evidence, safeguarding it as he had promised Porter. The recording validated Jackson's testimony and painted a chilling picture of fear and foreknowledge. It suggested that Porter knew her life was in danger, that forces were at work to silence her, and that her death might be far from natural. This voicemail became a pivotal moment in the trial, bringing a new level of urgency and gravity. For the jurors, the courtroom, and those following the case, it was a stark reminder of the stakes involved and a call to look deeper into the shadows surrounding Porter's death. The reaction to Jackson's testimony was immediate and overwhelming. Media outlets exploded with coverage, dissecting every detail of the shocking revelations. Across social media platforms, the hashtag #JusticeForPorter trended worldwide, sparking conversations and demands for accountability. Investors, rattled by the allegations and mounting controversy, called for thorough audits of Diddy's extensive holdings. Sponsors, unwilling to be associated with the growing storm, swiftly pulled endorsements. Collaborators and industry insiders issued carefully worded statements, distancing themselves as the empire that once seemed unshakable began to show cracks. Inside the courtroom, the judge delivered a decisive ruling. All submitted evidence would be admitted into the federal record. There would be no delays, no dismissals, everything was now officially part of the trial, permanent and undeniable. And then, a heavy silence fell. Diddy, once seen as an untouchable mogul commanding respect and fear, sat quietly, stripped of his usual aura of power. The courtroom no longer saw the celebrity titan, but a man weighed down by the gravity of the truth that had finally come to light. Curtis Jackson hadn't just dropped a bombshell, he had shifted the course of justice itself. Whether the legal system will act decisively on this evidence remains uncertain. But for everyone present, one thing was crystal clear. The truth had finally spoken.